And so basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to just put a quick video out there that's from the Motion Palpation Institute that we talk about just dealing with overwhelm and uncertainty. And this can apply to any time, none probably greater than now. And so I just asked a couple of really highly trusted resources, Mark King and Kevin Christie, to give me just two ideas, two things that if you could encapsulate what to do during this time of uncertainty and overwhelm, like what are the two things that you're seeing the most of as far as what you need to do, not only as a profession, but just, as small business owners, as fathers, as family men, as husbands, as wives, as friends, as newly grads, people that didn't practice for 30 years, just as humans in general, things to think about. Obviously, this is going to be a chiropractic spin, but just things to think about and things that I think we can all take away from what to do during these times of uncertainty. Points. Dr. King is president of Motion Palpation, and I highly respect his input on all things. And so I asked him, what are the two things that you think I should let people know that they should focus on, during this time of uncertainty and overwhelm? So Mark's his first point, which I love, which I was a little surprised on, was to continue to work on your clinical and your manual therapy skills. Like become so skilled as a clinician and as a doctor that you'll always be in need in your community. I think that's huge. Like I'm glad that I started with that point because I think there's still things that you can do now to practice to get better clinically. You can read old textbooks, you can pick up some online resources, there's online videos, there's online training, there's online courses that you can do, things that can make you better clinically to the point to where even though we're in this weird time, that people will look to you as an expert of not only in your field, but just in their general health and well-being in general. And I think that is a huge point to drill home right now, is to work on the things that make you clinically excellent. I think that is absolutely huge. His second point was to step back, reevaluate your clinic's approach to long-term strategy, your CA and staff development, your company culture, and most importantly, your own leadership skills and how you can change your approach to leadership. I think that is huge. So his second point was to step back and reevaluate. Basically look back and see what it is that you can do to help, one, ensure your long-term longevity as far as like what you can do financially, systematically, structurally to safeguard yourself from times like these. Like that's something that obviously I know right now we're right in the middle of it, but now's a good time to start thinking about what if this happens again in 10 years. Secondly, your company culture. Like what is it that you want to develop as a culture, a culture of clinical excellence, a culture of collections, a culture of kindness. Like what is your culture and how do you cultivate that moving forward? I think that's extremely important. And then for most of you that are watching this, how can you change your leadership skills or what is your leadership role right now? And I mean, this is probably more important now than ever. I think our leadership roles as a chiropractor in our profession and in our offices in general has changed. I think it's become one of vulnerability, leaning on others, asking a lot of questions, and being okay with not being the solid rock all the time, but being the guy that wants to learn and grow and continually expand based on uncertainty and not knowing. I think we need to ask a lot more questions. I know I do. And so I think that's a really key point here, is also what can you do to change your leadership skills? You don't have to be the guy that knows all. And your worth isn't tied to what you do and to what you know. Your worth is tied to how you react with others, how you connect with others, and how you can lean into those things that you don't know. And I think that's extremely important. Kevin Christie, who is the Modern Chiropractic Marketing Group and also a key player in a lot of other things like the Chiropractic Success Academy, the FTCA. He's got his fingerprints on a lot of different things, and he's doing good in all of those. He's got a book coming out and a baby coming out really soon. Not him personally, but his wife. So he's got some really good points, and he basically started with questions, which I think is great. And I think you need to ask a lot of questions, and I think we need to ask more questions now more than ever. He basically said, how do I handle stressful times going forward? How do I make my office so strong that when bad things happen like this in the future that we can weather the storm? Great questions. Like, those are what you need to ask. And so his answers to those questions, because he asked those questions first, I'm like, so what's your answers to those? He said one is to have a healthy emergency fund and attaching an emergency line of credit to your business. Simple, like things that we need to start thinking about. And again, to go back to some of Stephen Covey's things that he said is start with the end in mind. Like, and maybe even Dave Ramsey, like to have an emergency fund, something that's just liquid, that's on hand to have in cases of times like this. Part is things that people have reached out to him the most about is the power of having an audience. And people are upset that they got these ideas and they're going to start to create content, and we've got this downtime so we can do this and we can do that. And I'm one of those guys. I'm creating more content now more than ever. Because I have the time. I don't usually have the time to do that. And so now I do have that time, and I have all these things that have been on the back burner that I can bring to the forefront, and I can start to do that. And then people are getting upset because they don't have an audience. Well, now's the time is to create content and figure out how to distribute that content, and to start distributing it, in a way that makes sense, and not just throw it all out there and hope something sticks against the wall. And so, create content now, get your ideas in line, create a plan on what you want to do and how you want to distribute that. Pick your 2 or 3 social mediums, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, newsletters, whatever it is you want to pick, and don't try to just do it all at once. Pick 1 or 2 of those things that you want to focus on, create the content for those things, and then start to distribute on a consistent basis. That will build audience, and that is what's going to continue to grow your audience. And as long as you consistently create it, and once all of this fog lifts and you start to go back to your normal days, don't forget about that, because work has changed in its definition of work for the chiropractor. When I first started, it was all about getting out and meeting people, and you still need to do that. You need to go out and meet people, but right now we can't do that. We can't get face-to-face with our referring docs. We can't get face-to-face with our patients. We can't go do group talks at running stores. We can't do that right now. So now's the time to increase our digital footprint. And so when you do that, you have to be consistent, and it's a new definition of work. The last 2 things I want to think about, so these are our 6 points of overcoming overwhelm and uncertainty. Mine are very basic and just kind of fundamental, because I'm a fundamental kind of guy and I'm simple. But one is to take care of your health and wellness. Like, now is more important than ever that you show up each day as your best self. And so you need to create a routine that's going to ensure your health and your wellness. So I think it's important to create a routine that allows you to show up in your best, as your best self, as close to your best self as every day. And we're never going to be our best self every single day, but we should always chase a better version of ourselves every single day. And to have a routine that will help you with that is going to be immensely important. So, get up, work out, shower. I like to work out hard, get a real good sweat going. And then on my way to work, I have a 20-minute drive. I listen to podcasts. I listen to what's called the Daily Promise, which is a spiritual, lesson. And then I've started a routine of meditation. And then I do some writing and some journaling. I like to create and start to get my ideas out there on paper, because I think that's extremely powerful. And then I get kind of into my day, and I try to schedule my day more efficiently than I would normally. Like, I try to schedule my day so that I'm busy all day long, even though I'm not seeing patients all day long like I used to. It's time for us to recalibrate what's important, reconnect to the people that maybe we haven't been connected to as much as possible, or we should reconnect at a deeper level than what we have been, and not just the superficial level. Get into practice, get through this, do this. I'm a coach here. I got to do this, for this kid. reconnect on a different level. Like, we've been playing games, we've been talking, we've been listening to podcasts together, like we talk at different levels. Like, reconnect with the people that mean the most to you and re-engage. Like, just re-engage with your people, with your patients, with your kids, with your significant others, with your friends, with your family, with your mom, with your dad, whatever it is. Like, re-engage with those people, because I think that's a big part of your health and your wellness. Secondly, another one of the underlying theme is Stephen Covey is examine what you can control and what you can't control. There are things right now we can't control, and to focus on that is a complete waste of our time. He called it the 80-20 rule. He said 20% of what happens to us we can't control. 80% of it we can. If somebody cuts you off, that you can't control. You can control the reaction to what happens. You can either road rage, or you can say, hey, you know what? I don't know what's going on in that person's life. I forgive them, let them go. I hope they, pray that he doesn't hurt somebody, or they don't hurt somebody, and that they get home safely, and whatever it is that's going on in their lives, that gets resolved in a way that gives them peace. And so, re-examine what you can control. Like, we have downtime, so now's the time to create content. Now's the time to handwrite letters to your patients that you haven't seen in a year, or that you realize there's something else going on outside the muscle and joint world that you need to reach out to them and say, hey, I kind of picked up on this, if you need anything, I'm here for you. It's time for us to just re-examine what we can control and what we can't, and to focus our energy in what we can control, and to not worry about the stock market, and not worry about the fact that our numbers are down, not worry about the fact that we can't go out and get face to face with people, and figure out what it is that we can control, and then how we can show up, how we can learn new things, how we can do stretch goals, learn how to learn a new language, learn how to play guitar. We talked about that the other night in my house. Like, maybe it's time to stretch us, because we know that ultimately the victim of fulfillment is comfort. And if we stay in our comfort zones right now, it's not going to serve us or the people that we want to show up for. It's not going to serve them in any other higher levels. So now's the time to stretch ourselves, to get way outside of our comfort zones. And the more we do that, I always go back to that scene in Forrest Gump where they're in the shrimp boats and the storm's coming, and Lieutenant Dan's shaking his fist at the gods and saying, you call this a storm? And then at the end of it, they're the only shrimp boat left, and they're rolling in it. And so I just think, I keep going back to that scene in my head over and over again. But if we can weather this storm, like, we're going to come out on the other side, and we're going to be a force. We're going to have new skills, we're going to have new engagement, we're going to have we've recalibrated, we've re-engaged, we've reconnected, and we've stretched ourselves to the point where we actually have more power personally than we've ever had before, because we got rid of fear, and we just kind of became, the people that we knew we could be, and we started to reach those goals and those potentials that we just never really got to because we didn't have the time. And so hopefully we look back on these overwhelming and these uncertain times as a blessing, and always think of it as in a positive way, that I'm glad that happened, because now I'm this, and I've gotten to this level because of that. And so I think it's now more than ever, it's just time for us to recalibrate, reconnect, re-engage, become cognizant of what we can control and what we can't, and just show up as our best selves every day. And ultimately I think that's what's going to serve us the most. And so, like I posted yesterday, one of Wayne Dyer's famous quotes is that fear is contagious, but so is hope, faith, and love. And if we can kind of remember that and keep those narratives playing in our head, I think we're going to be okay. MPI community, we love you. We're here for you. We believe in you, and we know that we're going to get through this. Thank you so much. God bless.